Hey, F50 Women. Thank you so much for joining us today. Today we are with Heather Zeitwolff.
Zeitwolff,
Yes.
yes.
I was afraid I was going to get tongue-tied. I love it though. She is, hold on a second. I want to get this right. She is the vegan CPA. So she's going to tell you more about that when she talks, but she's a CPA. She's a profit advisor. She's a money coach. And she helps women achieve their financial goals in their business and personal life at any age. There is no limit to achieving that. And I can't wait for her to help us with that, especially me. So thank you so much, Heather, for joining us.
Thank you. This is very exciting to be on this show today. Thank you so much.
Yes. So let's just get started. Let's talk about who you were as a younger woman. What were you like? What did you want to be? Tell us how this all started.
Well, I grew up in a very theatrical kind of home. We weren't necessarily putting on plays, but I had a lot of costumes in the house. And it was just, to me, costumes were a normal thing and sort of putting on a show or whatever. So I always thought that I was going to be an entertainer. And then I got very interested in fashion in my teen years. And I ended up going to fashion design school and then found out it wasn't about the art. I thought it was going to be about the art. Instead, It was all about business. And that kind of led me down this interest of business, like running a business. And I ended up going to business school, studying advertising and working in market research, and worked in that for many years. And then I was laid off during when a lot of people were laid off in, this was probably around 2009
2009. Yes.
Yeah, 2009. And I was at this crossroads. My father was very old and he was in hospice, and I was taking care of him and trying to figure out what's going to be the next, my next act of my life. Yeah. And at the time I was in my 40s, I thought about going to law school, was studying for the LSAT, and thought, do I really want to be riddled with all these student loans at that age? And I'm like, no. And then I thought about studying public administration. And then I went back to my school, which was Portland State, where I had a business degree already, and talked to them, and they're like, well, you could just go back for like a little over a year and get another degree in accounting if you're interested. And I loved my accounting classes, and I was like, I think that's really what I want to do. And I could see the vision of me like working on a tax return, because I love this sounds really geeky, but I love forms.
Yes.
I love spreadsheets. I love all that kind of stuff. And I've always loved numbers. So that led me to that path. And so I studied that, and now I'm in my 50s. So I guess that's sort of that in a nutshell.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah. So tell us about you now, because you love the spreadsheets, accounting, you're a CPA. Tell us, what do you do now and how do you help people?
Yeah. So I'll tell you a little bit more of a backstory of kind of how I came to accounting and loved accounting. Yeah. So as a child, I loved counting money. I had piggy banks and I had play cash registers. I was always intrigued by all that. Yeah. And then I, went to college, had credit cards. I got into some credit card debt issues. Yes. And we're not taught about credit card debt and student loans and all that sort of thing when we're young, until it's like almost too late and you're now owing all this
buried
debt.
Yes.
Yeah. And it was a tough lesson. I ended up, while I was working, having to go back and use some of my retirement fund to live, because I was in that desperate situation, which is a terrible situation. And I know a lot of people get into that because they have to pay off their debt. So yes. I come from a place of understanding, like I love money and playing around with the whole idea of money, but I've lived through this horrible debt situation. And so I can be empathetic with people about that. So when I decided to study accounting, it was also coming from this, like I had taken finance classes when I got my first business degree and accounting classes, and I loved those classes. In fact, my professor said, why aren't you studying finance? That seems like more of what you're into. But anyway, so then years later I did. So I come from this empathetic mindset there, where I want to help people. And I'm fascinated by business. I think it's super interesting. And as someone who started a business in their 50s, I'm really I really want to help women in their 50s starting a business because I've lived through that as well. So,
Beautiful.
yeah. And I understand everything that they're going through,
Yeah.
hormonally,
Yes.
hot flashes, all of that. And,
That's real. Yes.
and, it's interesting when you're in your 50s, like you've come to this point where it's like, you think like, oh, is my life over? Can I do a reboot at this
Yep.
point? And also what kind of happens is when you're older, all those fears that you had when you were younger, like, oh, I want to be an entrepreneur, I can't do that, who's going to buy for me, who's going to this and that, all these
Yeah.
doubts that you have when you get in your 50s, because you've lived through so much, you're
Yeah.
kind of like, well, if it doesn't work out, who cares? Like,
Yes.
I'll just try it. Like,
Yes.
like what could happen? I, have to go
What
back and
worse
find
could
a job.
happen? Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So now I find myself, I do work with people that are millennials and, Gen Zs. And so it's not just, I don't specifically just work with older women, but, and I shouldn't say older women in a certain age, let's just say.
Right.
But
how do you say that? I don't know. I haven't figured out the beautiful, sexy word for that yet.
Yeah. But so I do help with tax. I do tax preparation, tax planning, bookkeeping. I offer I do group programs around money. I do group programs around tax and running a business. And so I try to do like all the touch points throughout the year, because when I was working for other people, I was doing tax preparation, but it wasn't like I was with the client all year long. It was more like they just brought in their stuff at tax time, and then we put it into we made anyways. I don't want to get too technical. I was about to get technical. So we did all the things.
We will contact you directly for that. Yes.
Yeah. So we'd get everything all prepared and stuff, and then they would go on their way, and then we wouldn't see them for another year. So I really want to be work with less clients and have more touch points with the clients.
Oh, that's beautiful, because you can help with all the spaces in between.
Exactly.
Help them to understand and to grow and to,
Exactly. Because if you just the touch point is just at tax time, then it's all reactive. At that point, it's just too late. You can't plan.
Yes.
And so
yes.
I want to be able to help my clients, throughout the year and make good decisions before the year is over, so that they can, reduce their tax burden and all of that.
So important. I say that just almost every year. So we've paid the taxes, but could we have done that to get less, or could we have done that to make this work out better for us? Knowing how to prepare. That's beautiful. I love it. So tell me, you started a business after 50, and I'm so interested to hear if there's an answer to it. What's the key? What was the hardest thing about doing it? Or for those women who are thinking, I want to start a business now, what should we look for or look out for?
Well, there's a lot of things. So,
okay.
I said at 50, you're kind of like, you feel more fearless, but at the same time, there's still fear. Like,
yes.
you don't want to screw up. You don't want to, especially in my situation where it's like, I'm working with someone's finances, like you don't want to screw up. Like that's like, there's no room to screw up.
Yeah.
But I would say one of the toughest things was trying to figure out who I wanted to work with. When you start a business, you're like, okay, now I need to find clients. Like, so clients come to you and you're like, okay, well, that's not really what I want to be doing, but I'll take it anyways because it's money coming in the door.
Right.
And
yes.
So that's a difficult thing when you first start off, like figuring out who you want to work with. If you have some money set aside when you start a business, so that you have some wiggle room to just kind of find where you want to be, that's the best thing. You want to really plan it out and figure out who you want to work with. That took me a while. That was sort of like my first year in business, was kind of figuring things out. And then, you see other people doing things and you're thinking, oh, well, I need to do that.
Yes.
Well, and you shouldn't compare yourself to other people because they're not on the same path as you. But, I watched a lot of webinars, I took lots of classes, and then, so I would go down these rabbit holes of like, oh, I should be doing this because the social media people tell me this. And then I should be doing this because I heard this on a podcast. And you need to kind of shut off that noise and just figure out what you want to do and follow your heart.
Yes. Follow your heart, follow your purpose. Everyone has a different sort of angle or niche that's really, really great advice to just block it all out and do you. And I love that you shared at 50, you do some of that younger hesitation, fear, noise peels away, but there's still noise.
Yes.
And even that's why I started this. You get to 50 and you see the other ladies who are about your age and they're sort of all set with certain things. I'm good with that. I feel good about myself, but you also see that, but you're not done because there's still some mesh or garbage or stuff you need to work through. Especially if you want to get to bigger and higher levels than what you've ever lived before.
Exactly.
So I love that.
Another thing that I learned was, because I don't know if you're going to do a visual, but I have pink hair and I'm not your average looking accountant.
Mm-hmm.
And when I started my business, I wanted people to take me seriously. I'm a total goofball, but I'm very serious when it comes to my work.
Right.
And I wanted to portray, someone that knew what they were doing. So I'd meet with clients and I'd have suits on and, I call them costumes because that's not really my thing.
Right.
But, so I was kind of playing this role that I felt like I needed to do.
Yeah.
And it wasn't until I just became more authentically me that I really started working with the clients that really meshed with me.
Yeah.
And that's another thing I would just say, be authentic with who you are and let that come to the surface. Because if you're doing a service that somebody else can get somewhere else, I mean, somebody could, go to another accountant, but what could set us apart if we have the same skill base is how we're different, how we approach things differently. Like I was a project manager, so I come to looking at their business from that perspective. So who you are is what makes you different is really the key selling thing, I think.
Yeah, absolutely. Yes. And if you don't show up authentically, I feel, at least from my experience, people can sense it and they can tell that something is not being put on the table. So like you said, maybe I can go over there. That guy over there can give me the same thing. Very good advice. I love that. So you talked about I think you talked about your parents. There's that point in time that we went over kind of quick, but what was that thing that shifted you? Yes. Shifted you into what you're doing and who you are right now.
Yeah. So it was a interesting time. My dad was 90 years old and I was helping him out. And I was trying to, it's very, I don't know, when you're dealing with someone who's dying, you sort of start to look back at your own life and think like, what am I doing? Like, maybe I need to change things up. And, I had been working in market research. I loved that, but it was like, do I really want to do that for the rest of my life? And here I'm given this opportunity to completely change. And so I decided, that's why I was like, should I go to law school? Should I do this or that? It was like, this is my opportunity to redo my whole life. So, but I also was thinking like, okay, I am getting older. What is a career that I could do that, if I become decrepit like my father, like what could I do when I was older? And, we live in a society that people are going to be working well into their 70s, and maybe their 80s, who knows, depending on how much money you have set aside. But so I wanted something that was going to be long term. So certainly accounting, you could do sitting. So that that was a good option. And there were jobs available and it was something I was interested in. But just kind of looking and reflecting back on my life and thinking like, okay, what is it that I want to do for the rest of my life? And I mean, maybe, I'm also a podcaster. So if the podcasting thing works out, maybe I'll do that later on. And that's another thing you could do sitting.
That's another you can do that sitting. Yeah. You could do that from anywhere. Oh gosh, I had a question for you. I was going to ask about your podcasting and then I had a question that came up and it left my head. So let's just ask you did you have anyone who inspired you? Did you have a mentor? Tell us about the people who helped you along the way or the person who might have changed everything in that moment or on the other sides of that moment.
Yeah, so I've had a lot of those actually. Okay. I love to network. I love to meet people and I do it. I like to think that I'm very authentic when I meet people, I'm kind of a goofball at, when you go to these meet and greets and stuff, I just let it kind of let my freak flag fly kind of thing. And
Right.
some people are like, who is this? And then other people are just, it's refreshing to other people. So
Okay.
I've done comedy. I've been a Toastmasters. I have like all these different groups of people that I've known throughout the years. And sometimes they cross over. Maybe I'm the link to them. And so I love to link people together. And I appreciate when people do the same for me as well.
Yeah.
So from having the podcast, I've met different people, whether they've been guests, maybe they're a podcast agent or something that's contacted me. And then I meet other people through them. But it's this wonderful web that you meet somebody and, always like, just remember when you meet people that they could be a great connection for you, and not saying like you're going to use them, but you just never know. Like be very giving with them. Like if you find out an opportunity that they could use, then let them know. And then they'll do the same for you as well. So this whole web of people, I've met so many people in this past year that have inspired me. And I had one woman on my show. I'll do a shout out to Katarina Rando. She was on my show. I didn't know her at all. Her agent contacted me to be on the show, and I had her on, and she was just like this person that I was like connected with immediately. She kind of reminded me of someone from my childhood, I think. Okay. And I just was like, oh my God, this is like the mentor that I was meant to have. And so now I've signed up for her programs. I'm going to be going on a cruise retreat with her, and I've signed up for next year with her program. So she's really inspired me. And her big thing is that you have to have bliss in your business. And I was not having much bliss in my business at the time. I was working way too hard. I was doing all these things that like trying things that I shouldn't have been trying, that sort of thing. And I'm like, I have to have more bliss in my business. And so that has been so inspiring to me.
Yeah. What does that mean, bliss in your business? Maybe you can expand on that.
Yeah. So don't do the things in your business that don't bring you pleasure. Like, if a client if you don't want to work with a client, don't work with that client. If it's a type of business that if you're taking on types of jobs that don't bring you happiness, if you're just like begrudging it the whole time, just don't do that, because you've made the choice to be an entrepreneur. With that, you have power to say no to things and to say yes to other things. So say yes to the things that bring you bliss in your life, in your business, and say no to the things that are just going to be a drag.
Yes. Good advice, because we get to be entrepreneurs and we get a little desperate and think, like, I think you said this already. We have to take everything and anyone. We don't have choices. Yeah. Do you feel like doing that, having bliss in your business has helped your business to thrive more?
I think so. And, it also makes it easier to say no to things and say, and then when you say no to things, more yeses come your way. It's amazing, because if you're just constantly working on things that drag down your business, you're too busy with that stuff and you're not looking for other opportunities. So if you can say no to that, and, people come to me and I'm like, that's not really the type of business that I'm doing now. I find them another CPA that does that type of work. And so, I'm not like saying like, don't, get out of here. It's not like that. I'm very helpful to them. And then the CPA that I, refer, they're thankful.
They're happy.
As well.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it, it's like what comes around goes around, I try to be giving with that. And one of the things about the bliss is, getting more help in your business. And I'm working on that. I've got some interviews on Monday for a VA. So I'm very excited about that. So I'm looking forward to sending some of the stuff off my plate to somebody else.
Yes. So then you can expand in the areas that only you can expand in.
Exactly.
So as a podcaster, tell us a little bit about your podcast. An accountant, and with your joyful personality, tell us about your podcast and how accounting, which seems like a sort of a dull numbers, detailed thing, and then all that joy and energy you have. How do you mix those? And tell us about your podcast a little bit.
Yeah, thank you. So my podcast is called Get the Balance Right. And it's kind of gone through some changes, just like I have in my business. It's kind of moved along with me. So when I started the podcast, I wanted to work with primarily people in marketing, advertising, and I still work with people in those industries, creatives. I'm a creative person, so I like to work with creatives, and I kind of understand their mind. Like they may be like turned off by numbers and all of that, but I'm sort of like left brain, right brain kind of thing. I'm a Libra. I'm really balanced in that. So I'm artistic,
Nice.
but I love the spreadsheets and numbers, but I understand that they don't like that kind of thing. So they're my kind of people, creative people. So my my podcast was geared towards creative people, mostly marketing, advertising, videography, filmmaking, that sort of thing. And so I was interviewing people in those fields. And because I wanted to learn more about their business and understand their business more. But what happened was I was interviewing all these people. It was great. I was learning a lot about the industries and all that. But I think my message was getting lost in there. Like people were like, oh, it became almost like it was a marketing podcast instead of a podcast about working with me. And I mean, it's really a marketing, it's a marketing tool. It's a passion project, doing a podcast. You have to love it.
Yes.
So it's not just for advertising me. It's also something I super enjoy. It's but anyway, so for season 2, I was like, I think I'm going to rebrand this. So my mom passed away and I had a time to reflect this past year and think about like, maybe I should be, again, more authentically bring myself forward. So I did some rebranding and decided that I really want to focus on working with women. And I just feel like that's like my sweet spot. I work with men and some of my best clients are men. So I work with both, but I decided that I really wanted the podcast to be geared towards women, mainly midlife women that are maybe first-time entrepreneurs or just new to entrepreneurship, that there's so much fear around money. And I wanted to sort of talk about that and make a safe space where no shame. We're going to talk about this kind of stuff that maybe you might be afraid of. A lot of people are just afraid of like taking risks in their business. And oftentimes it's financial risk in their business. So I wanted to kind of demystify a lot of these things. So I rebranded and I decided that in podcasting, there's a lot of male voices in podcasting, and I really wanted to elevate a woman's voice. So I decided this year I'm only going to interview women. And it was also important to me that I interview people from different cultures, different ethnic backgrounds, that sort of thing, to really have a nice, well-rounded voice of women. So I think I've done that so far this year, and I've talked to some financial experts, some other business experts, and I'm also focusing on myself as well, because people were saying like, why don't you do a solo episode? So I've done some of those as well. So people can hear more of my opinions on things.
Good. Nice. So learning all that you've learned, having pivoted your podcast, having helped a lot of people get comfortable with finances, especially women of our age, which maybe I'll get a little advice from you on that in a little bit. But I'm curious right now, if you met your younger self, knowing all you know now, what's the one piece of advice you would give her?
Oh, okay. So I had, when I was working in fashion, I had a connection. I was working in theater and going to go back to New York to work in fashion. And a director I was working with saw that I had painted my jacket. And I used to paint jean jackets. And he was so impressed with that. And he's like, I have a connection at Yves Saint Laurent. Here's this person's phone number. And you're going to New York, you call this person up, tell them that you know me, all of that. So I get to New York and I have this phone number. I never called that phone number.
No,
I was so afraid that the person would be like, to say no to me, or be like, get out of here, or whatever. I was self-doubt. I had self-doubt. I was like, who am I? Why would somebody at Yves Saint Laurent want to talk to me? I had all these like, that chatter that you have in your head. Like, so if myself now looking back, when you have an opportunity like that, what is the worst thing that they could say? They could have just said like, no, I don't want to
No.
meet for coffee.
Yeah.
But who knows what if they said yes? My
Yeah.
life could have been completely different. So
Yeah.
when you have opportunities, don't be afraid, just because what is the worst thing? I wasn't going to die from it. They may just said no. I mean,
Yeah.
so please take opportunities when it comes to you. And I feel like things happen for a reason. And, maybe that was not my opportunity. I don't know, maybe.
Right.
But
Yeah.
I should have, so those are, but don't have any regrets in life too. So I don't have regrets. I just learned from that. Like when you have an opportunity, take it.
Exactly. Yeah. Lesson. And hopefully someone who's listening could learn your lesson. Maybe they have that little number in their hand and they could just call it.
Yeah.
What's the worst that can happen? They hang up the phone. So in business for women who are entrepreneurs, women who are our age, what would be a piece of advice you give us in terms of finance and building our business? Is there any, couple of clues, things to watch out for, or things that we should do so we can build our business and if either give up our day job or not have to lose our savings,
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the biggest thing is don't be afraid of your finances and your numbers. Look at them.
Okay.
When people come to me, maybe they've tried to do their own books. They don't really know what they're doing. They mess
Yeah.
it up and then they don't know what's going on in QuickBooks. So if you
Right.
don't understand what's going on in QuickBooks, just hire a bookkeeper and they will be able to let you know what the numbers mean. They'll keep it all
Yeah.
organized for you, because
Yeah.
you can't really make good decisions in your business unless you understand what your finances are. I just worked with a client that came to me that he's in a partnership with his wife, and they had
Mhm.
never looked at their books in like a profit and loss. They had never seen a profit and loss statement for their
Yeah.
business, because
Yeah.
they just kind of like just did their tax return or whatever. And I broke out all the different types of sales that he had, and he's like, I've never seen it like that. I never knew that that's how much I made in that offer versus this other offer. And then I
Yeah.
was able to look at the different payment sources.
Mhm.
So, there's PayPal, and he was using some other kind of third party thing. And I could look at how much he was paying in fees. And one was double the other one. And,
Yeah.
and, based on, I did like an analysis with the sales and all of that. And so having this information now, it's like, wow, it really can empower you to make other decisions. Like, oh, maybe I should double down on this work that's actually bringing me more. There's less fees associated with it, maybe
Yeah.
less expense. Another person that I worked with, I broke down what the costs were involved in serving one client. And it turned out that the expenses that this business was, all the expenses that they needed to provide the service was actually more than what the client was paying them. And
What?
yeah, but you wouldn't
Oh,
know it
man.
unless you looked at all the little
You're running
pieces.
uphill. You didn't even know it. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Wow.
really, it's so important, because people can get into situations like maybe they have a job that comes to them. I work with mostly people that are in service, have service businesses, but
Yeah.
they might have an offer that they think like, oh yeah, I'm getting $10,000. But what are all the costs associated with that, and all the time that it takes? And unless you're kind of breaking it down and looking at it, you'll never know that maybe that, because it's a big number, it may sound like it's really great, but maybe that really doesn't bring in the same amount of money as maybe something that was like a $200 thing that you sell over and over again. So
Right.
it's so important, and everything affects finance. So you really just don't be afraid. Take a look
Yeah.
at it, work with somebody that knows what they're doing, and they can help you and guide you through the whole process of what the numbers mean.
Yeah. And do you find a lot of the people you meet and clients of yours are actually sort of like they go into their business just closing their eyes, like, I pray that I can run through this, I can run through my bank account without having to look at actually what's happening.
Yeah.
Is that pretty
yes.
normal or standard?
Unfortunately, it is when, so I work with a lot of solopreneurs. So
Okay.
if it was like a big business, I don't think that they would be running it like that, because they wouldn't be running their business for very long. But
Right.
a lot of the people, when they come to me, they may be new to business, or they've had their
Mhm.
business for a few years, and they have been sort of
Yeah. The
running.
blinders or the,
Yes,
yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
And, paying taxes, that's something we all have to do. And
Yes.
that's another thing. They put the blinders on. They have no idea how much they're going to owe in tax. They're not
No,
even
it's
sending in
scary. Yeah.
quarterlies. And then they're just terrified.
Yeah.
And, and because people are so terrified, they don't even want to do their tax
No.
return because they're so terrified.
Yes.
So, yeah. So I have, I like to have this like shame-free approach where it's like, it's okay. I'll
Yeah.
get through it. It's all right. I'll figure it out. Just give me all the stuff that I need to piece it together, and we'll get through this.
Yeah.
So, work with somebody that is, empathetic about that, if that's the case,
Right.
and get through it. And once you get everything organized, then it can just sort of run along great.
Yeah.
You just get your bank statements on time, and you put put all the numbers in, and then you'll know what's going on in your business. So it's super, super important.
Yeah. You get that wheel oiled, and you just don't have to have the anxiety and worry and fear of what's coming. Yeah.
Exactly.
Very important. So tell us what's next for you. What's on tap? What's coming in the future, near or further future? Tell us about that.
Yeah. So the podcast, I've got some really exciting people that are booked to come onto the podcast. So it's Get the Balance Right. And you can find it at any podcast player. And in my business, I'm starting to offer more group coaching. So I'm super excited about that. I've got one that's coming up in January that's about for people that maybe can't afford a CPA to do their taxes, or maybe
Okay.
they've never gotten their business ready for taxes, and they don't know what they have to give a CPA. So it's a group program to get women and other, it can be men too, but
Right.
it's really geared for women
Mhm.
entrepreneurs to help them get their business sort of organized for tax time. So I've got 3 groups there, and then I'm going to have other groups in the future that'll be supportive, putting together a roadmap for their business so that they actually have the right goals in place so that they get
Okay.
the revenue that they really want in their business. Because a lot of people just kind of run their business sort of by the seat of their pants.
Seat of their pants. Yeah. Yes.
So
I
those are
can
some
see
things
that.
I've got in the works.
Oh, that's great. And now are these workshops or trainings, group coaching, is that going to be online? Can anyone nationally, internationally get involved? Or is it a hybrid where some are going to be in person, some are going to be online? Tell us how we can get involved with that.
Yeah, so the group programs are all online, and
Okay.
they are designed to be anybody, I would say probably in the United States, because we are
Okay.
going to talk about things that are tax law that is
Right.
only for America. But when I have other group programs that are more about running the business, then anybody could,
Anyone.
I mean, because it's business is business, pounds,
No matter
dollars,
where.
right? There's
Yes.
just switch it around.
Yes.
But and then as far as taxation goes, when I do tax preparation for people, it
Mhm.
depends on what state that they're in, because I do everything now through Zoom, but I only work with people where I feel comfortable with the tax law in that state.
Gotcha.
And I'll send people other places if it's like, if I don't, because it's a liability for me that, if I don't understand it. And also I want the person to have, the best experience and
Yeah.
with working with somebody. And if I don't know something, I'm going to be upfront about it and be like, you know what, this other person could probably help you better. That's more their sweet spot. So.
Right. Yes. Nice. Oh, yeah. Thank you for the referrals too. I think that's great. You give some, you get some. I think that's beautiful. So tell us a little bit of advice from your playbook, just to find out who you are and what you know, and to soak up some of the information. What is one book that you would advise all women to read?
Oh, a book. Okay.
Yes.
That's a good question. A book. Okay.
Mhm.
Well, one of my favorite books, I've read a lot of business books.
Okay.
And The Pumpkin Plan by Mike Michalowicz, I think that's a really good book.
Okay.
It sounds weird, pumpkin plan.
Yes, it does. Interesting though. Yeah.
But the idea is that you run your business. I'm going to butcher it, so I probably shouldn't even talk about it. But it's running your business like you're growing one giant delicious pumpkin, and so you have to cut away the weeds. This is like the analysis of it. I mean the not
analogy.
Analogy.
Analogy. Yeah.
The analogy of it. But that's a great book. And let's see. I'm looking at my Sorry, I'm trying to think of another
That's
really
okay.
great book, but that would probably be one of the best books, I think, when you're starting a business, of how you should, because a lot of it goes into having informational interviews with people that are in the industry that you want to be in. And
Okay.
I think that's super helpful, because when you interview somebody that would be maybe your ideal client, that you think would be your ideal client,
Yeah.
and you ask them what are the problems that they need to have solved, they'll tell it to you in a way that you could utilize those words in your social media, in your advertising, because they're speaking the language that that like, for me, like, I guess you'd call it like layman's terms. Like I don't want to talk like accountant speak when I'm doing social media. And so
Right.
hearing it from the people that are my target audience, the words that they would use would be the best ones. So that's like
Right.
one little piece of advice that comes from that book, but there's a lot
Okay.
more to it.
Okay. I like that. I would love to explore that. I'd like to explore that idea of informational interviews.
Yeah. And
That's
people are willing to do
yeah.
it. I use Acuity for my scheduling, for my, if you want to book a discovery call with me, but
Right.
I also have a meeting in there that is for a virtual cup of coffee. And
Hmm.
people, if you just say, hey, would you like to have a virtual cup of coffee with me, and just sit down for a half an hour, and people are very willing to do something like that. So,
Yeah.
I, find somebody on LinkedIn that does something that maybe you're interested in, and connect with them. And as long as you're giving, as long as you're
Right.
like, hey, I think you might like this article, or hey, this other person does what you are doing, and maybe you guys can collaborate, or
Okay.
you have to, there's a give and take, to
Yeah.
that.
Again, that's the give and
Yeah.
take and give kind of situation. Yeah, that works out because everybody's looking to grow their thing and they're willing to help you as well. So
Yeah.
that's great advice. So what do you do outside of podcasting, outside of accounting? What do you do when you're not doing this? Or is this you everywhere you go?
Well, I'm a longtime dedicated vegan, and you mentioned the vegan CPA. So
Yes.
I do work with vegans.
Okay.
I give a vegan discount. But I found that I had branded myself as the vegan CPA, and then I had
Mm,
people coming to me from different industries, and I'm like, that's not my sweet spot. I think you should, work with somebody else.
okay.
So it's not exclusively vegan, but I only work with businesses that are ethically aligned with me. So
Okay.
um so if you're producing leather goods or something, I can't work with you. But
Okay.
so I love to cook vegan food, so I've become quite the chef, and I can
Okay.
brag because people like my cooking.
Yeah.
And so I love to be in the kitchen creating all kinds of stuff, and I love my kitchen tools, like my Instant Pot and my air fryer, and I've got a giant locker full of small kitchen appliances, like a
Okay.
griddle, like I got all kinds of stuff. So I love to cook.
Uh,
I've got a husband who I love and I love to spend time with. And then I've got
good.
two kitties that are they're my furry children, my fur babies. And
Okay.
I like to spend time with them. And yeah, I love reading books, and I love art.
Yeah.
I used to think I was going to be an art dealer when I was younger. That was another thing I thought about, being an art
Okay.
dealer. I love art history, and I am a movie junkie. I collect movies. I love movies. It's one of my passions. So
Okay.
I
What's your
oftentimes are staring at my iPad watching Netflix.
okay? What would you say at this point in time? What's your favorite movie?
Oh my God. Well, my favorite movies probably people have never even heard of. I like a lot of weird movies.
Okay, that's
So,
okay. We can learn something new. See something
okay,
different.
okay.
Yeah.
So one of my all-time favorite movies is Repo Man, that came out in the 80s.
Okay.
And
Yep.
that
I've
has
heard of it.
Emilio Estevez in it, which is and it's directed by Alex Cox, who's one of my favorite directors. And then I love so there's certain directors that I really love.
Okay.
But so that's one of my favorites. Repo Man. Liquid Sky is another one of my favorite ones. This is a
Okay. Don't
very
know
hard
that
one
one.
to find.
Okay.
And another one, this is a really dark comedy is Happiness by Todd Solondz.
Okay.
Yeah. Those are three of my top favorite movies. Like if I had to, and Office Space. And people probably heard of that one.
Yeah,
That's one
I've
of my
heard of that
top movies. So like if I
Okay.
had to go on an island and only take 4 movies, it would be those 4.
Those
And
4.
Big Lebowski. Sorry, 5. I have to take 5 movies.
Okay. And a TV and some electricity. No, I'm just kidding. Very nice. So what is one thing that you can't miss doing every day?
Can't miss doing every day.
Yeah.
Besides going to the bathroom, I would say.
Okay. That's important. Yeah. That's going to happen whether you do it or not. Yeah.
Yeah. I would say cuddling with my kitties.
Okay.
I love to cuddle with my kitties. They and sometimes when I'm doing the podcast, one will jump up on my lap and
oh, I love it.
Screen,
yes.
But right now, no, there's no kitties doing that. But
they're being quiet. Yeah.
Yeah, I love my kitties.
Okay.
And unfortunately, one of my other things is checking my email. I check my email way too much. And I was just on a business retreat where I did not check my email most of the time. I put my laptop in another room and was like, okay, I'm not going to check my email. So right now I have a little bit of anxiety because I haven't gone thoroughly through my email in 3 days. And that's just like, oh my God.
Yes. So, what did I miss? I missed that one important email that I would never usually come. Yeah.
Yeah.
So you were on a business retreat for 3 days. What was that about? Tell us about that. Give us some juice.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've discovered over the time that I started my business a little over 2 years ago. Mm-hmm. And again, we talked about flying by the seat of our pants. Well, I've been doing that with marketing. I've just been like, I guess it's time for me to post something. Oh, I got a podcast coming out. I'll just post.
Yeah.
Well, I'm not keeping up enough on social media, and I know that I should be doing more. And it's one of those things. It's like, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
So part of this retreat was setting up my year, looking at my year, what's coming up, and then how am I going to do my content creation around that, and when am I going to schedule things? So right now, the only thing I plan for social media is just a post when I release a podcast. Like that's not enough for social media. Yeah. And so kind of planning out my year to think, okay, like I've got all these ideas. Like I want to do so many things in my business. And instead of getting shiny object about and being like, oh yeah, I should do this. Like look at my year and be like, wait a minute, this actually would be better in March, than January. Like, and being more proactive about my social media, and also be more strategic about it. I don't have any strategy when it comes to social media, and I really should. So so the retreat was really getting myself focused on that.
Okay. And are you going to have someone help you with that? Because, social media can be a full-time job, posting and interacting with people. Are you going to do that yourself?
I'm gonna find someone. So that's on Monday. I'm gonna hire someone to help me. But I was on the retreat with someone, my friend Jen, who is a marketer, and she told me we both love software, and so she was telling me about some different software that I can use that could AI type stuff that would free up my time. You sort of set it and forget it kind of thing, and it does drip campaigns and all that. So I'm going to utilize also technology to help me with this instead of doing all this stuff manually. So
sitting down and pressing post and that's important for all those solopreneurs who are trying to come out, because social media is a way to get yourself out there and connect with people nowadays. So very good. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was going to say that, and also learn where it is that your people are and focus on that rather than trying to be everywhere. So people keep telling me, you should be on TikTok. You'll explode on TikTok, whatever. It's like, I don't know anything about TikTok, and I'm not sure if I need to go down that rabbit hole. Like I already am on LinkedIn, Instagram, it's like, do I really need another social media platform?
How many things? Yeah. And TikTok's so specialized. It's just, a couple of minute videos and then you flash down to the next one. Okay. That's interesting. You just made me pause because I think I try to be on almost everything. It's exhausting.
And there's like marketers that will say like just double down on the ones that are where your people are and you enjoy being on, because you have to be on it more often. And Yeah, it's tough. I use Later as a scheduling tool. So I try to post to different places like Pinterest and all of that. But I'm just doing it because it's just a click of a button. But
Right.
I don't even know if my people are on Pinterest looking at my stuff. So
I know. Yes.
it's
Yeah.
that one's a shot in the dark, but I'm doing it anyways. So.
Yeah. Especially if it's just a one button, you can just add that into your one button push. So when it comes to finding your people, you said you're not really sure where they are. On this retreat, did they give you any advice to be able to tell where your people are? Is it just where you get more engagement, or how do you tell?
Yeah. So I think my people are probably on Facebook. No, yeah, Facebook. And I have a Facebook group. So if you're interested, it's called Get the Balance Right. It's for women entrepreneurs. So Get the Balance Right on Facebook.
Yeah.
And so I've started that group. I know people are on Facebook. I'm not really that wild about Facebook anymore. I don't really want to use it, but I know that my people are there. Yeah. LinkedIn is probably my favorite platform. I get probably the most engagement on LinkedIn. And I just feel like it's not about like, I don't know. It's about business. It's focused on business. And that's really what I'm trying to do. Yeah. And I do sometimes on Instagram, but really, people watch, I don't know. It just feels like it's not really helping anything on Instagram. So my goal is to double down on LinkedIn and Facebook.
Year. Okay. So we're going to look for you there. And this is the perfect time for you to tell us, how can our listeners get in touch with you after this podcast is over?
Yeah, thank you. So I have a Linktree account. So it's Get the Balance Right on Linktree. And in there, you can sign up for, I've got a monthly meetup. It meets on the fourth Monday of every month. And it's called I'm going to butcher the name because I came up with a crazy name that even I can't remember. It's the Monthly Monday Money Mayhem Makeover. Oh, I did it. So you can sign up for that. And it's a little bit of painless networking, mastermind, and you get to, meet other female entrepreneurs, tell them about your business. And really, it's no stress. I know a lot of people hate networking. It's a lot of fun. And I've been having experts come on to the meetup and telling about, a particular topic. So they can sign up for that through the Linktree. So Get the Balance Right podcast. I'm sorry, Get the Balance Right Linktree. And all of that, you can find my podcast, you can find my business, but I also have a podcast website. It's called getthebalanceright.net. And you can also find me at zeitwolffaccounting.com. That's hard to figure out what that is. So either you'll have a link in the show notes, or you can go to my Linktree and find it and then go from there. And you can sign up to have a meeting with me through that website.
Yes. And I will have that link on the show notes. And I will tell those who don't know about Linktree, they can find links for everything you're doing on Linktree. That's how that works. Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. So you find that one place and you can find her website and her social media and everything else she's doing. So find her there, or go in the show notes and click on the link there. Either one. Well, thank you so much for being here. We appreciate your advice. I look forward to potentially me. I'm figuring out what 2022 is going to look like, and my guests linking up with you and your workshops and really trying to figure out how to just take the fear out of finance, because the struggle is real, but knowing ahead of time and planning ahead of time will smooth out all the other stuff you're trying to do.
Exactly.
So thank you. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you so much. This has been really fun.
Thank you.